Ah, new compost bin.
It's shiny.
Oh, and it's full.
Oh, wow.
Looks like she's composting.
Excellent.
ABC, always be composting.
Excellent job. But there's a hierarchy to food waste, and you got to think of it as reduce, reuse, recycle, right? So reduce, first off, don't buy anything you don't really need. Just buy what you need in that moment. Reuse. There's some stuff in here we can make use of pretty easily. And then whatever is left over, compost or recycle.
Yeah, so let's see what we can do when we dig in here. Let's dump this bad boy out.
Hi, I'm Sandy from PLAYTE Kitchen.
And I'm Josh from PLAYTE Kitchen.
And we're here to talk to you a little bit about utilization of compost or food waste and reducing that in your own kitchen.
We've got Earth Day coming, and we look at things like this and we, say, hey, there's a lot of stuff that's usable instead of going right into compost, which is great. But we can use these things, get creative. It's what restaurateurs and restaurant chefs always have to do to make a little extra money. Instead of putting this into a compost bin, they get creative. And it's a lot of techniques that you can use at home as a home cook to look at this and not see a pile of compost, see opportunities to make some fun stuff. We look at all this stuff that we can compost, and we ask ourselves, why is composting important? Because if it doesn't go into a compost bin, it's going to go into a landfill, and there, because it's not properly managed, will decompose and put greenhouse gases up. And we're really doing a lot of this to try to take care of Mother Earth.
Absolutely. And it can also be beneficial to compost even beyond taking out those greenhouse gas possibilities, as this can go back into the earth, creating nutrients to grow the next food generation to come up behind it.
Hey, so let's just poke around in here and see what we've got. We've got lots of peels here, carrots and sweet potatoes. I see some apples.
Cleaned really well too, which means they're automatically usable, which is awesome.
All this stuff is organic. And why is that important? We're going to start using the peels to make some stuff out of, and if for conventional vegetables and fruit, a lot of pesticides are on the outside, and nobody wants to make pesticide flavored carrot chips. That's no good for anybody.
No.
We've got some other things around here. We've got some like mushroom stems and
lots of uses for those.
Yeah, like lots of tops, carrot tops over here, beet greens, some radish tops.
Ooh. We've got some broccoli stems. I definitely
You got some ideas
for that? Yeah, and even the lettuce nubs and the celery. I mean, those are completely usable. We'll play around with those a little bit today. And the humble orange peel.
That started this whole thing.
Has another life to it. All right, so I am going to work with these lovely orange peels here. I love to work with them and use them up because a lot of people just don't even think to use them at all. For other applications, you can trim the pith out of it, but in my case here, I'm going to candy them and then store them, kind of cure them in some more sugar. And so the bitterness is actually really kind of nice because it adds a counterpoint to that super sweetness that we're going to create. And then the orange flavor comes through really nicely because of the balance. So I'll end up cutting these into a few pieces, but I'm going to get my pot started here really quick. I have sugar and water, and I'm going to go ahead and get the water in here and get that started. And then with the sugar, what I already did is I've made some of these candied orange peels in the past. I tend to do this a lot because I love oranges. So I have some of them right here, and when you cure them in the sugar, you end up with a lot of orange flavored sugar. So you can use that in baking or in making a custard, whatever the heck you want to use it for. But I also reuse, hence the reduce, reuse, recycle thing. I reuse it again here, and I use it to make the simple syrup in which I'm going to cook these orange peels. So it's just a simple syrup, equal parts sugar to water. All right, move that off to the side and work with these orange peels. So I'm just going to make them into bite-sized pieces. Just think of candy. You want something that you can just pop in your mouth and eat really easily. Give a little stir, make sure my sugar is starting to melt in there, and I'll go ahead and add my orange peels right on into there. We're just gonna let this simmer, nice bare simmer. You don't want it to go too crazy, just little bubbles around the edges for about an hour or so. You'll start to see that it'll reduce down, the liquid here will, and the oranges will become very saturated and even change color. And then you'll know when you have something that looks like this, the liquid will end up looking like this, and it'll be a nice orange simple syrup, perfect for cocktails. Just saying. And your beautiful candy that you just pack in some more sugar. You take it out, let it drain, pack it in some more sugar, and it'll kind of cure it and tighten it up a little bit.
I'm going to make a couple infused oils. First, it's going to be citrus based. So, out of the kitchen.
Do it.
The discussion with Chef Sandy about not having to worry about the pith because she's adding a bunch of sugar. For me, the pith is pretty bitter. That's this white stuff right below the zest that's got all those essential oils, all the aromatics. So we're going to take this out. I'm using a really sharp 5-inch utility knife. I'm almost pressing flat. So as I go in, and I start about an inch in, so I have a little spot for my fingers to hold on to, and I go work my way all the way across, get the pith out of the way, and now you can start to see the zest showing through the pith. I turn it around the other way. A little pith is going to be okay, just not a big, thick amount like before. And I can go back and trim it up a little bit more. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. All the aromatics are in the zest. So now I had prepared some earlier. I'll add this to it. It's super simple. I'm going to go onto a cooktop. That is probably going to take about a half a cup of oil. We're going to start fairly slow because we want the gentle heating of this oil to extract as much flavor and oils out of these citrus peels as possible. So what we're looking for is some bubbling, and once you see that, you can turn it off the heat. We're going to let it steep a little bit. Chef Sandy, do you have a funnel you can hit me with?
Absolutely.
And I'm just going to put it into a ball jar. Be careful when doing that so the oil doesn't splatter. Let this sit for a couple days and check it. I have one here that I made a couple days ago. It works great to dress noodles. You can add it to a vinaigrette. You can take it, brush it over a piece of grilled fish. It's a great use of what normally would just go right into the compost bin. We've got parsley stems. You can use thyme stems, sage stems, pretty much even the woody ones, and I'm going to show you how. Also, another rubber band in our compost, but this is holding together the little nubs of chives. And also what I see here, and this will be perfect, is when people get really worried about cutting their fingertips, they leave a fair amount of garlic at that little woody end. So I've got all these things. I see flavor. So what I like to do is I like to dehydrate this stuff first. Now I can use a dehydrator, and I did a little bit of this ahead of time and dehydrated it at about 135 degrees for about an hour and a half to 2 hours till the stems got really concentrated in flavor. When we're doing oils, we want to put as little moisture into that as possible. The more moisture that's in an infused oil, the faster it's going to deteriorate and go rancid. Also, whenever I make my oils, I keep them in the fridge. You've got a longer shelf life and less likely to go bad or get potentially harmful. So all this stuff was dehydrated. So topped it with about, probably about a half a cup, 3/4 of a cup of oil. Warmed it just gently, just like we did for the citrus oil. Once I saw little champagne bubbles, I pulled it off, I let it steep. What I'm gonna do now is, because some of these stems were woody, they're nice and brittle now because of they've been dehydrated, but I'm gonna give it a quick puree. Now, we want to make sure that there's no little bits of the woodier herb stems in here, so we're going to strain them. I have a small strainer into a small ball jar. It did pick a little bit of the color of some of the herbs in there. Garlic's been pulverized. All that flavor has come out of here, so into our oil. So now, let this cool to room temperature. I'll store it in the fridge till it's ready to use. So as I look through here, there's a couple other things that I see that we can kind of extract some flavor out and repurpose. So one of those is, a lot of people take just the flesh off the jalapenos and leave the seeds and the pithy membrane inside. That's where all the capsaicin lives, and that's what makes these things hot. So a lot of people don't want to burn their face off when they're making their guacamole or their salsa, so they save these. Now, I look at this, and I happen to be a big fan of a nice spicy Bloody Mary. So alcohol is a great way to extract capsaicin out of what looks just like something that should be composted. So I'm gonna save these for Sandy, because I know she's got something planned. But yesterday, I took some vodka, and you can do this with other spirits. You could do this with rum if you want a spicy mojito, or tequila, makes a lot of sense. But I chose some vodka for my Bloody Marys, and I have about 4 of these bodies. I took the stems off, but everything else is intact. I put it in, ball jar. I give it a shake every day for about 3 days. Give it a taste. There are 4 in here for this amount. It's probably 3/4 of or 2/3 of a bottle, and taste it. And then once it gets to the heat level that you are looking for, we'll strain this out back into the bottle that it originated in. And also make sure, if you're going to add something and you've strained all the seeds and everything out so it doesn't look spicy, that you label it so you don't surprise somebody. All right, so now I'm going to look through this again, and I see lots of different kinds of peels. All root vegetable peels. We've got some sweet potato peels. Looks like russet potato peels, and a whole bunch of carrot peels. Now, to make the chips, it's super, super easy, and it's a great way to repurpose this stuff. The technique is the same, except temperatures are a little bit different. I'm going to do just a quick demo with the carrot chips. So I'm going to put the carrot chips or carrot peels into the bowl. You can actually, I could probably fit a little bit more. Don't be afraid to kind of overcrowd your pan just a little bit, and I'll explain why in a second. Now, I can season this however I want. I could do just salt and pepper, a little Creole spice. You could go a curry or anything you want. And all I need is a little bit of oil. I'm going to use a neutral oil, vegetable, canola, rapeseed, because I want to taste the chips. I don't really want to taste the oil. And I'm just using probably half a teaspoon, just enough to coat this a little bit. It's going to help promote browning and crispiness. What are you doing?
Making myself a cocktail. Thank you for infusing some alcohol for me. I'm over 21. It's okay.
All right.
It's all good.
You enjoy. I'm going to keep working. We'll season our carrots with a little bit of kosher salt. Toss them around. We want the carrots to be a little shiny so we know that the oil is covering all the individual strips. We'll spread this out. If they pile up a little bit, it's not going to matter because we're going to cook these. And carrots, Anything sweet needs to be cooked in an oven about 250 degrees. If you go too high, things will tend to burn. But as they cook at that low temperature, they are going to start to wilt, and we are going to go and kind of rearrange these every maybe 10 minutes or so. We're just going to take a look. So these are going to go into 250 degree oven. And by the magic of television, we have, you can see the volume has reduced quite a bit. They've picked up a little bit of color, but not a lot, but they're nice and crispy and crunchy. Anyhow, I made a whole plate of different ones. You can see all the nice different colors, lots of different textures in here as well. We have the purple sweet potatoes. We've got parsnips, which are great. The regular sweet potatoes. I've got two different kinds of potatoes. One thing, when I do potatoes, either russet or like a yellow fleshed potato, I do it at a higher temperature. They can withstand it. I do about 350 degrees, but the technique is about the same. They take at 350 degrees about 20 minutes or so, but I'm checking them maybe after 7 minutes, tossing them a little bit just to make sure everything cooks crispy. Also, I like to move stuff from the outside edge of the sheet tray into the middle so that everything cooks easily. Here you go, chef. Munch away.
Oh, yay, salty snacks.
What's in that cocktail? And how come you only made one?
Oh, did you want one? Sorry.
No, I'm working.
Actually, I used your delicious spicy vodka that you made with the jalapeno, and it's got some kick. Thank you for the sweet carrot. That was a really nice balance. And I added a little bit of the orange syrup from making the candied orange. If you're looking for a nice, refreshing drink that doesn't have any alcohol in it, you can still use this orange syrup. It's really delicious. So just add it to a glass with a little bit of club soda and some muddled mint in it. Maybe put a little squeeze of lime right after you mix it all together. It would be nice and refreshing and delicious.
I've got another idea for what to use these carrot peels for. So if you've got a dehydrator, you can use this to make all sorts of different things out of things you normally compost. So for carrot peels, super easy, just spread them out. It can be mounded up if you've got more, because once again, they will start to shrink, and just every half hour or so, move them around. And they just go in. I normally go about 135 degrees for 2 to 3 hours until they get nice and dry. Okay, so now that we have these dehydrated, nice and dry, and you can hear them, how dry they are, a little crack, snapple and pop. We need to get a spice grinder. If you don't have a spice grinder, you could use a small food processor or a blender. All I'm going to do is add these to my spice grinder. And if you use your spice grinder for coffee, just make sure you rinse it out real well, or like a damp paper towel. There's also a trick of taking dry rice and pulse it in your food processor, and the rice will start to pull all the odors of the coffee out. So then you can use it for other tasks like this. And vice versa, if you're grinding cumin seeds, you don't want your coffee to taste like cumin. It's a great technique. So once this goes in, I'm just going to pulse it. And eventually, it'll get more fine than this, but it's going to break down until it looks super fine like this. Now, what do we use carrot powder for? Well, it's really super concentrated in flavor and looks great as a garnish on a plate. You could add that to a smoothie. You could add that as a kind of naturally sweet sweetening agent. Other things that you can do powders like this with, beets are great. Beets are super healthy. Throw this in your smoothie. Be careful when this hits any moisture at all, it turns blood red. Also, we had these mushroom, this is a looks like she was making something with portobellos. So this was a portobello stem, and she scraped the gills out of the portobello, which a lot of people do because it tends to make dishes really, really dark. But we could dehydrate that and come up with a mushroom powder. Mushroom powder has a ton of umami, that taste of savory. This is a great way to add a layer of flavor to a risotto or soup, a stew, what have you.
Find some lovely things in here that can make a nice slaw, which would be a lovely light salad. We have broccoli stems. What's so funny is people throw these away very often, and they're really delicious. And what I want to do is cut some of these edges off of here so that I can work with just the solid stem right like this. So I'm going to face it down with all of these little edges straight down. Then I'm just going to cut straight down, cutting these odd edges right off and getting something somewhat cylindrically shaped. Then we're going to use the mandolin. Now, be very careful with this device. It may not look like much, but it can do some damage. So you want to make sure that you are safe. Safety first. This is a very sharp blade here. I like to call it the vegetable guillotine. Let's try not to make it a finger guillotine at the same time. So the safety device I use is a cut glove. Basically, this is a synthetic fiber that you can actually, don't be freaked out, you can run right across the blade and it's not going to hurt you. So you don't want to do that too much. It will wear down the fibers eventually, but it will make it so you can be nice and confident when you use this piece of equipment. So I'm going to take my broccoli, and holding my mandolin at a 45-degree angle here, I'm going to slide it right down. So I'm going to take this and slide with some confidence now that I know that my glove is there to protect me, and get some nice thin pieces here. You can also just cut nice and thinly with your knife, no big deal. But now we have these pieces here. From here, I'm just going to cut them crosswise. And this is where I use my knife. Grab a couple pieces at a time. Don't get too ambitious and try to cut too many things at once. Curl those fingers, make yourself a nice little claw, and cut straight through to create nice thin pieces for our slaw. All right, some other things that I want to steal from this pile here and add to the slaw are some apple skins, because they'll add that nice little tannic note and a little bit of sweetness and tartness to it, adding a little dimension. Get the garlic skin off of there. We don't need that. If you are peeling your apples, one thing that's really good to do if you know you're going to be able to use the skins is just get a little lemon juice on them, and that way they won't oxidize and turn brown and then be funny looking in your slaw. So grabbing those, and also some carrot peels. So we were talking about using the carrot peels before. This is a great opportunity for that. So I'll grab my carrot peels. We can also have odd bits of carrot. So you've tried to cut your perfect julienne or your perfect bâtonnet or your perfect, dice of your carrot. There's a lot that gets left over here. So we can certainly cut this nice and thin as well and add it to the slaw, and you just won't even notice. So with these carrot peels, I just lined them all up on top of each other, and I'm just cutting at a hard angle here to get nice long thin strips, so that they kind of match the shape that I get from cutting the apple skins crosswise and cutting the broccoli stems crosswise as well. So our final dish will be beautiful, and nobody will know that it came from potentially being sent to compost. So I cut up all of my slaw ingredients, so I'm ready to go with those, but we need something to dress the slaw with. And I really, really love making chimichurri sauce. And here I can find a lot of ingredients that can go into that. There are about 1,000 or so chimichurri recipes out there. So it's kind of, you can use what you have. So you can make it your own each and every time. So I have all sorts of fun stuff I can use. And I'm just going to throw it all in a blender. How hard is that? If you're going to try and be sustainable, at least make it easy. So we're going to get our blender ready to go. Let's see what we want to put in this. I'm just going to get that out of my way. So I have some carrot tops. That sounds like fun, right? I'm just going to chop them up just a little bit, just roughly, just so they can catch on the blades a little bit easier and not end up being long stringy bits once we get in there. Boom, into the blender. We have some scallion ends. So Chef Josh talked about these and how they can be a little bit weird when you're trying to cut them all perfectly, but right now if I just take that bottom off, I have this that I can work with right inside there. And then all we have left is just the little root ends that we're not using. Into the blender. Next, what else can I use? Ooh, there is a little garlic nub in here. Aren't I lucky? Can go right on in there. So we want a little bit of heat. Heat is good, and so we can take, luckily Chef Josh saved some of this for me. A lot of times you have these little shoulder bits here that are hard to get to because of the stem. So the stem can go back to where it was, but I can use the ends. And maybe I don't want it too spicy, so maybe not that part. So these can go right on into the blender as well, easy peasy. Let's see, what else can we use? Ooh, I have some radish tops, easy. Some cilantro stems, and I also have some parsley stems. So this chimichurri, you know, it's generally herbs, different types of herbs that you want to use when you do it. A little bit of red wine vinegar, generally speaking, some lemon juice, some olive oil, and the rest is kind of up to you. A little bit of garlic and onion product in there is always nice. So a little bit of those herb stems, just chopped lightly, so again, they don't get all stringy when you go in there. And then a little bit of oregano. This looks like it was, you know, starting to, you know, somebody got nervous, said it's going bad, but really it's just bruised leaves. And once you get them in here, it's not going to matter anyway. So I'll just break it up a little bit. And the rougher part of the stem, I will chop a little better. And in it goes. Let's see, anything else? All right. So I said I need a little lemon juice. I'll be very nice with this, and then Chef Josh can use the lemon skins to make his oils for us again, which is awesome. So cut, give a little squeeze. Not gonna try and make this too complicated. And then a little bit of vinegar and olive oil. And we're just adding a dash here, a pinch there. We're gonna taste it as soon as we get it going and then adjust it as need be. But again, this is one of those dishes that's really fun because you can use whatever you have and you don't have to follow too many rules. All right, let's see what we got. Okay, it's pretty well blended up. I don't try to make it too perfectly blended where it's a perfect puree. I want it to have a little bit of life to it, a little bit of pops of color. We're gonna add a little bit of salt in there, grab a tasting spoon, which I have hidden back here, and give it a little taste. We want it to be really bright. There should be a lot of acid in here, so don't be afraid of that because when you're tasting it on its own, it's not like you're eating a soup. You're just tasting the dressing that is going to go then on the vegetables with a lot of water content. So I'm renaming this now, and it's going to be called Scrappy Churri, my new favorite dressing. Okay, now we're going to put the slaw together now that we have all of these ingredients that we just took from in front of us here. I'm going to add my carrots, my apples, and my broccoli stems. And then I have my chimichurri right here. Isn't it pretty? Add a little salt to the salad itself to make it taste really good. And then we'll add some of the dressing. And it's really beautiful. It's kind of chunky, which I like. Make it very rustic. And then toss to coat. Just taste it. Make sure it's how you like it. If not, adjust it a little bit. I like it. So we still have some stuff that we can use here. We have these lettuce nubs. So you made your nice, romaine salad. Great. You have these pieces left. Normally you put them in the compost, which is great, but we can still make a life with those. Some celery, same thing, celery ends, we can use that as well. Now, granted, lettuce and celery gets really kind of dirty here, so we're going to want to clean that up a bit more. What I'm going to do is these really dry ends or rusty ends, I'll just very neatly shave that off so that we don't have that in our dish. But what we're going to do is make a no oil salad dressing. These bits can go back into our little compost pile over here because they're not very pretty, and so you're not going to keep doing stuff like this if you're making stuff you don't want to eat. So now I will take my celery, and since it's super dirty on the inside, and so is the lettuce most likely, is I'll cut it in half this way and then just cut it across a few times so that it exposes more of the dirt on the inside. And since we don't want to use too much water when it comes to cleaning our vegetables, I have a bowl of water right here. You just add everything to the bowl of water and let it kind of relax for a minute, and some of that dirt will loosen up. You can also manipulate it with your fingers and get that to loosen up in there as well. The fun thing about it is the dirt drops to the bottom and all the vegetables float, so it's easy to just lift them off when you're ready. So this is going to be a dressing. So I'm just going to go ahead and add some vinegar to it, which is our water that will help get this thing going, and we'll be adding flavor right there. Okay, so now we're getting somewhere. So it's pureeing up really nicely. As you can see, it has a lot of body to it, and it's got a pale green color from the lettuce and the celery, obviously, but it also mirrors the look of extra virgin olive oil and gives a little body to the dressing as well. So you don't necessarily have to have any added oil or added fat to your dressing, and it will automatically taste really good if you dress lettuce with it. So we can add a few more ingredients to it. This is, like any kind of salad dressing you make, you can add in there whatever flavors make you happy. We have still a little bit of parsley and cilantro stems over here, so I'll chop up a little bit of that because that would be lovely. If you wanted to add a little bit of mustard or something, you can certainly do that and add a little more dimension to the flavor. I want to chop these up a little bit so that the blender doesn't have to try to do that, and it might create those nice little specks in there that we would look for. Give it a little taste, adjust it as needed, and we'll be able to dress our salad.
Okay, we've made a lot of progress. Look how little stuff we have left. We still have some options on what to use with these items. First, we've got some beet greens here. And when we take the greens off of our root vegetables mostly, but carrots, beets, radishes, we like to do that right when we get it home from the farmer's market. It's really important because if you keep these attached, they're going to continue to leach nutrients from the radish or the beet, what have you. But save these. What I do is I cut them off. I wrap these in a wet paper towel, lightly dampened paper towel, and I don't wash them until I'm ready to use them because excess moisture in here can make them, start to deteriorate a little bit more quickly. So what I like to do with beet greens, radish greens, carrot tops, you can saute. You've seen some other applications. I do smoothies every morning. So this is a great way to get a lot of nutritional value without putting anything into the compost. So I put these into my smoothies. Normally about maybe a half a cup lightly, rinsed and then chopped into a smoothie. Things that are a little bit more peppery, like a radish top. I may need to taste my smoothie and adjust with either an extra couple pieces of banana or something sweet to kind of counteract that so it's not this spicy smoothie first thing in the morning. So that takes care of these. A couple other things we have. We have a lot of onion and garlic peels, the paper. A lot of people just discard this, think that there's nothing left. There's a lot of flavor, but also things like this add a little bit of color. So adding this to a stock, if I can pull a little bit more flavor out of this and not have to go and buy that bottle or that can of vegetable stock and keep the packaging out of a landfill, it behooves me to. So I have, and this is just the peels of the onions and garlic, and it's been simmered for probably about 45 minutes. You can see the color, and I'm just going to add this right to it, and we'll continue to simmer for a little bit. But it's real. It's got a nice light onion and garlic flavor, and this is a great way to use trims. If you don't have the time to make the carrot peels can go into a stock. Or you've got the little nubs of celery that Chef Sandy made into a dressing. That can go in here. This is a quick, easy way to utilize a lot of these things. Even our parsley stems will add a little bit of flavor to a stock. You strain this. What's nice is if I make this, I can freeze it. Stocks freeze beautifully well. Obviously, we strain it first. Freeze it in little pint containers, reusing containers that you've gotten from deli, so on and so forth. And then you've got stock in your fridge or freezer whenever you need it. Same thing with these mushroom pieces. These can be added to a stock because there's a lot of umami and a lot of flavor in here. So we can add that right in. It will continue to deepen the color, especially with the gills from the portobello. And we are pretty much down to nothing left to go into our compost bin. Well, Chef Sandy, we started with a big old pile of compost, or what was going to be compost, and we've turned it into a bunch of plates and bowls and dishes and jars of stuff. Pretty impressive. Nice work.
Yeah, stuff that we can eat today, stuff that we can save for later, so it doesn't necessarily have to all be consumed in that moment, which is pretty cool.
Right.
And then that's all
we got left.
So now we can put that in the compost bin, which is nice because yes, it should be composted as opposed to put in the landfill. And now all we have is a little itty bitty bit in there. And what's great about being able to do all this is you can have stuff that is definitely going to compost, all those little itty bitty ends that you are not going to eat. And if you're not going to eat it, then what's the point?
Right.
So, but I would keep it separate. So you have the little bits here, you have your coffee grounds, you have your eggshells, you have all of those things that are 100% compostable. So please compost those things. I don't think
banana peels.
You're not going to eat your banana peel. You're not going to eat your eggshells, so on and so forth. So compost those, put those in this little bin. Everything else that's usable trim, as we like to call it in the industry, as it were, is something that we just keep in a little bin or wrap up and keep in our refrigerator until we're ready to use it. And that way we can get really creative with stuff, which is kind of fun.
Save ourselves a little bit of money. And it just took a little creativity and some time.
Okay, so to know a little bit better about what you can compost, take a look at your local guidelines always. A lot of times when you get these bins from your local municipality, you can see right on the front what represents compost. So in some cases you can do paperware and paper towels and different types of disposable type of paper products. It depends on the product. So you're going to want to look and see what your area can actually compost and then compost all of those things that you can't otherwise use. Yummy.